Welcome back, gang. It's Deltia from Deltiasgaming.com, and I've been playing Avowed in early access, and I wanted to share 10 things I wish I would have known sooner that will make your life a lot easier. I'm going to talk about companions, builds, combat, exploration, you name it. So watch this video if you want to get ahead when you very first start playing. I will try to do it spoiler-free. If you're new to the game, this is going to be perfect for you. Timestamps are below if you wish to skip ahead, and like and subscribe if you get something out of this video. Let's get started. So the very first thing up is selecting a build. You're going to get character creator that's going to give you a background and have some godlike visual things to add to your individual character. So there's nothing mission critical when you very first start that you can't undo later on. There's going to be 3 generic type of builds and or play styles: fighter, ranger, wizard. Fighter is going to either play sword and shield or two-handed melee damage primarily. Ranger is going to be your typical bow user or can do dual wield. Wizard, going to be your typical spellcaster. There's also godlike abilities that you unlock slowly, and then companions, which you can activate their ability when you want. Think Dragon Age here. The interesting thing about the skill tree is 1, you can respec at any time really easily, and 2, you can mix and match skill trees. So one example of this is, let's say you're playing a ranger and you want a high burst build and loadout. There is a specific passive in the fighter tree called devastating criticals. So you're not going to stick just to the individual tree. You're going to mix and match to make the most out of your build. Now the icons give you passives and actives. Ideally, you want to have a couple active abilities and then load up on a lot of passives, especially for survivability if you're unfamiliar or, like me, a complete noob at the game. Early on, you're going to get these godlike abilities. One specifically is a passive. Grants a stealth attack against unaware enemies while crouched behind them. Summons a lance of energy that causes massive damage. This acts like essentially a one-shot to stealth attacks. However, it can be triggered with the ranger-specific skill that you unlock at level 5, Shadowing Beyond. This skill is insanely overpowered. It costs essence and it drains and has a 15-second cooldown. Essence is essentially your magic, but it's going to allow you to become invisible, and it's going to proc and trigger this one-shot godlike ability that allows you to stealth. Another thing about Shadowing Beyond that's amazing is that it allows you to do stealth reses on your companions. So as your companions go down, you're going to have another active ability called Dream Touch. 90-second cooldown costs a lot of essence, right? So you can activate this, pop your companions up, but you can manually do it as well. The strength of this individual skill is you can pop it. If you have the essence, kind of wheel around if this thing's on cooldown and manually pop those companions up. Essentially, it is the best skill for survivability and damage overall, especially at the beginning of the game. So the way I built my character and what I think is best for most players is sword and shield. You're going to have this AoE charge ability. You can decrease the stamina cost for medium and heavy armor, and you can do this really nice block slam that stuns, pushbacks, and interrupts enemies. And the ranger skill has a parry passive as well in it, where you can time perfect blocks that will knock the enemy back and get an immediate counterattack. It's a way to essentially play super tanky with a low skill point investment that allows you to take advantage of that godlike ability. So when I was playing on hard at the very beginning of the game, I was really struggling with using a two-hander, dying over and over and over. So what I'd recommend is, as soon as you get level 5, regardless of the build you're playing, spec in the Shadowing Beyond, experiment with it, and use that godlike ability. It will trigger and make your life much easier. Okay, next up is healing. And this RPG is similar and yet different than other RPGs. Most people are going to be spamming potions like I was. However, they're extremely expensive. So you're going to have potions for health and you're going to have essence potions for magic. You're going to need to use both of them a lot, all the time, but actually that's bad. You should be prioritizing food. So the thing about food is you can buy a bunch of them in the individual stores. They're dirt cheap. And what they do is they give you a boost to regeneration on health and or essence. So if I use a bunch of them, in the bottom left of my screen, it will give me a number of my health and essence regen, essentially allowing you to passively go crazy on healing and getting your magic or essence back. Also in the stores, consider buying them. They're dirt cheap. You can get for 4 or 5 gold, and some of them are crazy powerful. Next tip up here is, not only can you use consumables for healing and essence recovery, but you can also use them for buffs. buffs, and they also stack on top of each other. So this tip is make sure you stack as many buffs as possible before you jump into combat. So like you can get increased max health, increased max stats, straight up damage and damage reduction increased. And then you look at the bottom, it's gonna last for 300 seconds. So in those really tough fights, what I do is I craft a bunch of these or I buy them from the vendor. I load up on 5 or 6 depending on how hard the fight is. And then I pre-buff with my health and my essence. And then when I go into combat, I'm like a walking juggernaut. So pre-buff, don't rely on potions. This will make a huge difference. Okay, next up is going to be secret doors. Exploration Avowed is awesome. It's super fun. It's very vertical. So it incentivizes you to look around, jump, parkour, and always look up to the sky when it comes to exploration. You're gonna find a lot of barriers for your progress. So there's gonna be frost iron barriers that you can break. There's gonna be spider webs that you can burn. There's going to be crumbling walls that you can smash. So ideal here is your companions usually have one way to deal with it and or yourself, but you can save specific grenades on hand when you don't have the right spell. So you go into your consumables here, you have Margren's Fury. This is going to deal fire damage. This I1 is going to deal frost and freeze. You can also use this on metal gates or throw it on the water and then jump over it and shoot them in a specific panel, and you can use this lily seed on that. There's also going to be a poison one, really good for damage, and then a frag grenade for those destructible walls. So make sure you stock up on these grenades. They're extremely valuable and really important, not only for damage, but exploration to get past those individual walls and barriers. Another bonus tip here for you, since I don't want to screw my count up, is I carried a wand and a Grimoire on me at the very beginning of the game. The reason why is that Grimoire common elements will have 3 elemental spells you can cast. So it's going to have a flame spell, chill, and jolting. So if you run out of this, make sure just to keep a basic wand and a Grimoire on you, and you'll be able to get past any of those doors that are giving you trouble. Next up is making some gold and what to spend it on. So Avowed, you're going to be making gold by exploring, looting everything. You can sell it or you can break down items. Gems are the best way to make gold. So they have no value other than selling them at the vendor. You're going to be out of gold early on and you're going to be tempted to essentially sell everything, but I would not do that. The reason why I wouldn't sell everything is you can break down items. When you go over the individual item, whether it's in your inventory or at a workbench, it will tell you what you could get for breaking it down. If I wanted to upgrade a blue item to purple quality, I'm going to need these higher level components in order to do so, right? So with a purple level quality, when I break it down, I can get that needed material. So when in doubt, when you very first start out, even if it's commons, what's going to hold your power level and your combat proficiency back is just upgrading gear. Now, when you go to upgrade gear, it says that there's a bonus like physical damage plus 16 or something, but it feels a lot more impactful to go from +1 to +2. So sometimes if you're struggling early on, what I would recommend is breaking down those weapons and slowly progressing as you're getting close to finishing each individual map. The very beginning one, they want you to basically have your weapon and your armor maxed green, and then blue, purple, and then reddish, pinkish, whatever this color is at the very end of the game. So keep that in mind and do not spend a bunch of mats on random weapons. Pick a couple until you get more familiarized with it, or you're going to be out of gold and not be able to buy anything. And then as you level up and you're looking to upgrade your stuff from common to fine quality, but then you can sell the excessive common swords if you have tons of the material, and that's when you can start making a lot of gold because you're going to need it to get these specific parts. They're going to hold your progression back. Also of note for you loot hoarders out there, if you're looting everything like a good RPGer, you can store it in your stash, whether you're out in the field or you're just in your inventory somewhere. So don't consider you have to go back to camp and bank all of your gear. You'll be able to do it via your inventory, keeping you out in the field exploring a lot longer. Speaking of exploration, let's talk about vertical exploration in the next tip. Exploration is at the core of this game, and it's a lot of parkour and jumping. So it's not essentially like Skyrim or other games where it's just simply on one flat plane. So the biggest thing is to make sure you're looking up. The game has a ton of little secrets, not only these puzzles and doors, but like rock cliffs off the ledge, or looking up and climbing rocks to get to a new height to find some secret. The jump mechanic in the game is a bit deceptive, so oftentimes you think you can't jump across something, but if you activate the sprint and then jump, you can. And you'll be able to grab on ledges So try to get a running start to get some extra distance. And when you're crossing water, you can use that freeze grenade and jump on the circle to get to the next platform. So you also have little pools of water. If there's an inconspicuous little pool of water, you should probably jump in there and try to swim down below, because likely there's gonna be some loot down there. Also, the developers have loaded this game with items that actually increase your parkour speed. So if you like exploring and jumping around, consider collecting some of these items. But wait, that's not all. You'll also have a lot of consumables that increase movement speed. One in particular, fresh water, very cheap and easy to make or find. It's going to increase your movement speed by 25%. So I'd highly recommend investing in buying a few of these or collecting them. There's no mount, there's no horse. There is fast travel. Popping one of these and zooming around the map will really help you. Okay, next up, you're gonna have companions. So these are gonna be similar to Dragon Age, how they perform. You're gonna have Kai, he's gonna be a tank. You're gonna have Marius, he's gonna be a range kind of sniper. And then you're gonna have Yida, she's gonna be a healer. You also have this fourth one coming in the later progression as you move through the game. So companions come with 3 active skills and 1 passive. So your priority when you get them is to obviously unlock the skills that you're gonna use first, along with a passive. Then when you go to upgrade them, they have one of 3 different upgrade all. So you're gonna have a very specific build and loadout depending on which character that you have. Kai is the obvious choice at the start of the game because he can taunt and tank. Leap of Daring is huge for getting AoE, taunt and enemies attacking you, as a 60-second cooldown. And then Fire and Ire is on the single target taunt, 10-second duration with a 40-second cooldown. What I like to do with my companions is reduce their cooldown. This is gonna allow them to heal, do damage, or whatever you want them to do a lot quicker, because their damage is going to be insignificant in comparison to yours overall. Besides, Marius would argue with that. So reduce the cooldowns is your best bet to spend passives on these guys. Also, your companions can give you permanent buffs by investigating their backgrounds, forming relationships with them, and give you a permanent stat boost. So spend time talking to your companions. There'll be a UI pop-up in the lower left part of your screen that will have the companion icon. This is an indication that you should go back to camp and talk to the individual companion. Now, depending on your actions, just like other RPGs, they may or may not like what you're doing, but investigate, spend time with them, and learn what motivates them, especially doing their side quest if they have it available. Next up is merchants and vendors. We talked about gold making. What should you spend on your gold? Well, there's a lot to buy that is very useful outside of weapons and armor. So I would not buy weapons and armor. I would find it specifically unique you can get very easily via the side quest. So here's what I would recommend buying when you go visiting these vendors is Aedra. This is going to be your upgrade material. Very useful for every single build and character as you start progressing and unlocking those individual weapons and moving up the ranking. Treasure maps. These are going to be helpful because they're going to have obviously some treasure and a quest completion, and vendors have them. Totem maps. This is essential. It's going to pop up this quest that you'll have to go get a base, 6 totems, and they'll give you a permanent buff that you can activate once you assemble this totem in an individual area. Each area of the map has this available to them. Consumables. Talked about this already. I wouldn't buy a whole lot of potions and essence. Keep about 10 on you. Beyond that, I would stack a bunch of food. Frog and some of these other ones are essential and they cost like 5 gold. So stack a ton of them. Go to your camp, make consumables dirt cheap. You're also going to need lockpicks. There is no lockpicking mechanic per se, so just having a few of them on you is going to allow you to open up locks as you approach them. And then lastly, grenades. We've talked about how useful they are for various environmental doors, but they do a lot of damage too. So when I'm playing melee, I'll chuck a big fire grenade on like a tree type creature and it will do massive AoE damage over time. So don't always look at the tooltip of the grenade. The damage over time is super impactful and will nuke enemies. Okay, next up is attribute points and kind of what you should focus on. So if you're making this build, attribute points is going to affect your speech and dialogue, but really your combat. So characters that are going to focus on tank, high survivability fighter, go with might and then the resolve stat. For bow / bursty dagger builds, go with dexterity and perception. For spellcasters, obvious choice here is intellect and perception. Something you want to keep in mind is these stats are going to be shown a lot during dialogue pop-ups. When you're going to go around and meet a new village or go to a new area of the map and pick up all of the side quests, What I would do is take those consumables that increase those stats that you do not have much of. Since I'm a meathead and always play the same type of warrior character, that's always intelligence, kind of like real life. So I'm going to take a Merc Brew for +2 intelligence. I'm going to take a Trout Pie for another +1, and I can get some more resolve too. So buy a bunch of those consumables and use them as you go into towns. That way you can basically pass all those speed checks even if your stat is low. It makes a big difference. They're 300 seconds long. Okay, this has been an amazing video, not to brag or say how great I am, but you know, it's been pretty good. Now, summary, I want to give you with our final thing, your game priorities. What should you be doing when you start the game? So when you very first start the game, you're obviously going to collect stuff, explore. The game's all about exploration. What I would do as you get into the main town is go around, pick up everything, talk to every NPC. You'd be surprised there are a lot of side quests that don't have the big, huge exclamation point on their head. You're going to want to buy treasure maps and or the totem maps. The vendors sell them, so check every single vendor and buy the cheap stuff very first, especially consumables and anything that can regenerate your health. Next, you're going to want to get a unique weapon by completing a side quest. There are a bunch of them, but look for the side quest to get the unique weapons. Why uniques are so important is you can upgrade them. So they're going to have a standard effect and you can upgrade one of 2 ways, and that's a permanent bonus. This will make a huge difference. Then you can also increase the quality of them, and you want to invest in 1, 2, maybe 3 weapons as you progress. So have a build in mind and a weapon set in mind and stick with it. That's why I would only upgrade unique weapons and gear. Also make sure that it's the right weight. So the armor weight will determine a bunch of different factors like damage reduction and stamina. Once you reach level 5, I'd highly invest in that Shadowing Beyond for a stealth boost, and always be on the lookout for totem fragments and memory fragments while exploring. Memory fragments are usually going to give you a godlike ability or passive, and totem fragments are those important pieces to assemble the totem and then get that permanent buff. For instance, here's the first one, Scale of the Oath Binder. I'll have a bunch of these guides on my website, but if you don't know, you're going to need to go up to the north area to find the base very first thing you do. And then lastly, if you're struggling with combat, go sword and board, go tanky, and make sure that you're upgrading your gear. You're going to have a UI pop-up that says, hey idiot, go back to your camp and upgrade your gear. This is usually a good sign that the enemies are higher level and higher gear quality than you. They also have little icons like skulls. If it's 3 skulls, it will be very hard to kill them. Remember that upgrading gear is a bit deceptive. It might say +12 attack power or something, but it feels a lot more impactful going from 1 to a 2. So if you're struggling, upgrade that gear. Dang, that's the video. Hope you got something out of it. I think this was pretty helpful if I don't say so myself. So if you do, thumbs up. If it was trash and garbage, thumbs down. And I appreciate you watching.